This is the Sabbath School lesson for the fourth quarter, 2021.
Lesson 6 from our series Present Truth in Deuteronomy is titled, For What Nation Is There So Great? Ready for teaching on November 6, and I'm Percy Harrold. Sunday, October 31. Do not add or take away. Read Deuteronomy chapter 4, verses 1 and 2. What was the specific warning that the Lord gave them in regard to his statutes and judgments, and why would this be something that they are warned about right away? And we'll also look at Deuteronomy 12:32. But first, Deuteronomy 4, verses 1 and 2. Now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the judgments which I teach you to observe, that you may live and go in and possess the land which the Lord God of your fathers is giving you. You shall not add to the word which I command you, nor take from it, that you may keep the commandments of the Lord your God, which I command you. And Deuteronomy 12:32, whatever I command you, be careful to observe it. You shall not add to it, nor take away from it. The Lord tells them to obey the statutes and judgments, and not to add or take away from them. Why say that? After all, why would anyone want to change God's law? We know the answer, of course. And we read in Selected Messages, Book 2, page 107, Satan has been persevering and untiring in his efforts to prosecute the work he began in heaven, to change the law of God. He has succeeded in making the world believe the theory he presented in heaven before his fall, that the law of God was faulty and needed revising. A large part of the professed Christian church, by their attitude, if not their words, show that they have accepted the same error. End of quote. When you think about the history of ancient Israel, you see that in many ways they got in trouble because not only would they ignore certain precepts of the law, which for all practical purposes was taking away from the law, but also they would add to it, in the sense of bringing in practices that were not specified in the law and that, in fact, led ultimately to transgressing it. Read Matthew chapter 15, verses 1 to 9. How do we see an example here of the principle that, though in another context, Moses warned the children of Israel about? Matthew 15, beginning at verse 1. Then the scribes and Pharisees, who were from Jerusalem, came to Jesus, saying, Why do your disciples transgress the tradition of the elders? For they do not wash their hands when they eat bread. He answered and said to them, Why do you also transgress the commandment of God because of your tradition? For God commanded, saying, Honour your father and your mother, and he who curses father or mother, let him be put to death. But you say, Whoever says to his father or mother, Whatever profit you might have received from me is a gift to God, then he need not honour his father and mother. Thus you have made the commandment of God of no effect by your tradition. Hypocrites! Well did Isaiah prophesy about you, saying, These people draw near to me with their mouth, and honour me with their lips, but their heart is far from me, and in vain they worship me, teaching as doctrines the commandments of men. When the Hebrews eventually got the land promised them, they would often ignore the direct warnings about, for instance, idolatry. As a result, they followed many pagan practices, sometimes even as part of their supposed worship of Yahweh. By the time of Jesus, however, they had added all sorts of human traditions that, as Jesus himself said, made the commandment of God of none effect. Either way, adding or taking away, the law was changed and the nation suffered the consequences. And so to finish today, in what ways do we need to be careful about not adding to or taking away from what God tells us to do? This lesson was read by Dr. Percy Harrold for Christian Services for the Blind. Sponsored by the Sabbath School Department and distributed through Hope Channel Australia, this podcast is also redistributed by Hope Channel Germany, Christian Record Services for the Blind, and It Is Written. It is also available on SoundCloud and through multiple podcast distributors, including Apple iTunes. Remember, God is always faithful.